It was 1986, the height of the Group B era in rally, a category that featured cars often described as wild beasts. An excess of raw power, truly racing off-road, deep in the dirt, you see. So they decided to put the young rising star, who raced for the Black Lotus number 12, Ayrton Senna, behind the wheel of these cars. And today you're going to hear a little-known and rarely discussed story here in Brazil about the time when the most outrageous rally cars ever built came together with the driver who, at the time, and perhaps in all of history, was considered by many to be the fastest ever. And the story is so unbelievable that, back then, even the manufacturers who provided the cars didn't believe it themselves. You're watching Small Great Stories. Every week on Splash and Go, you know you'll get a short story about Formula One or something, as long as it's quick, fun, and cool to know. Let's go! Group B Rally, or Group B, is an off-road racing category rally that existed between 1982 and 1986. It was a short period, but it captured the hearts of a generation and is still revered today by car and racing enthusiasts. I think I already made a video about this category back in 2023, but I need to redo it. That's my Scout's honor. Everything fell into place for this category to come into existence. There was huge interest from manufacturers, and the cars kept getting more and more powerful. Things got out of hand, and then a crackdown began, with the FIA stepping in to clip their wings. But in those 4 years the competition existed, things really kicked off. Stunning footage, incredible drivers, unbelievable cars. And just as the category was reaching its peak in '86, someone on British television thought, what if we put that guy from Brazil, the one racing for the Black Lotus and causing a stir in Formula One, into these cars? At that point, Senna was in his 3rd season in Formula One, his 2nd driving for Lotus. He had made his debut in '84 with Toleman, and at the end of that year, he arranged to race the following season for the team where Emerson Fittipaldi had already raced and won the championship, also with the black and gold livery back in '72. But Ayrton Senna, even though he was still at the start of his career, was already a very well-known name in England, especially because of the sensation he had caused in the junior categories. Formula Ford 1600, Formula Ford 2000, and Formula 3, he swept them all. So, when he arrived in Formula One, to the English press, he was, shall we say, an old acquaintance. An English magazine that was going to conduct this test then invited Senna, who agreed, asked the manufacturers for the cars, which initially accepted, but at the last minute backed out, leaving them with only one model. The list included Group B machines that had been causing a stir, like the Ford RS 200, the Peugeot 205 T16, the Lancia Delta S4, and the Austin Metro 6R4. But then, 3 out of the 4 manufacturers pulled out, leaving the magazine's production with only the Austin Metro 6R4. But that wasn't a problem, and the production team then thought, what if we take this powerful Group B car and put it at the end of a lineup, and arrange for less powerful cars so that Senna, by the end of the experience, reaches this car? So they got on the phone, spoke to various collector friends, people who knew people who could arrange the cars. All this while Senna's schedule was already booked for those days, and they had very little time before the day of the feature, having to find new cars. But they managed it. So a Vauxhall Nova Challenge, a Ford Sierra Cosworth GPA, a Volkswagen Golf GTI 16-valve, and a Ford Escort 4-wheel drive appeared. It was never exactly clear why the magazines pulled out at the last minute. Perhaps they doubted that Ayrton Senna would actually show up. Anyway, they backed out. The tests were to take place in a remote region in Wales, and Senna drove there in his road-going Mercedes. It was a Friday afternoon, and a convoy of cars then hit the road. They then arrived at a rally track in the town of 𝘾𝙤𝙥𝙮𝙯, where the rally school in the Welsh Forest was located, owned by Jan Churchill. I don't know if there's any relation to the British Prime Minister during the Second World War, Winston Churchill. They got there at night. It was time for dinner, because the next day they would be heading to the track. And Senna, after the meal and a few glasses of wine, is said to have remarked, "I don't know anything about rally. I've seen the photos in magazines. Sometimes I watch it on television, and I've deliberately not listened to anyone about rally driving. I want to find out for myself." And so, over a grey Saturday and Sunday, as so often happens in the British Isles in Wales, in the middle of nowhere, Ayrton Senna did several laps around the rally circuit, sliding sideways, kicking up gravel, not dust, because the weather was damp, and gradually honed his driving skills in that style, which was so very different from what he was used to. And the footage is delightful. I'll ask the editor to put some of it here for you, as it's better than anything I could possibly describe. The story remained unknown for a long time. It was published in the CCC magazine, in this case. CCC, for those of you reading, stands for Cars and Course Conversions in English, by the journalist Russell Bodging. And the magazine had a very limited print run. It was distributed within a driving club. And that's precisely why this story was lost. Very few people know about it here in Brazil, let alone have access to these magnificent images. And to explain what Senna felt and what he thought of this experience, so different from what he did and would do professionally for the rest of his life, I'll use his own words, which I found in an article written by a journalist who was there at the time. Those people there with the cars were just as curious to see what would happen as I was, and I felt that everyone was eager to see where I would go off the track and, what would happen. That was the fun of it, because it was all so unknown, everything so new, that there was a big question mark. That feeling was the excitement. Besides the races I did, tests or anything else, this was probably the best day I ever had in the United Kingdom. Believe it or not, apart from the races I did for fun, this was the best day. That's why I didn't expect it to be so interesting. Ayrton Senna would finish that 1986 championship in 4th place, behind only the 3 who fought for the title. Prost, who was champion with McLaren. Mansell, 2nd with Williams. Nelson Piquet, 3rd, also with another Williams car. And that year he would win 2 races, Jerez de la Frontera and Detroit. Did you know that? Well, I didn't know until a few weeks ago, and as soon as I came across the story and the footage, I said, I know who needs to hear about this. You lot. So that was another little big story from Splash and Go on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, and it really helps the channel. Fancy a hug? Fancy giving us a hug? Let us know if you knew about this story. If you'd already seen these lost clips floating around YouTube, tell us where you're watching from, or just drop a little emoji in the comments box, because that really helps with the distribution of this and other content we make here. Likes, comments, and hype are the fuel that keeps the channel going. YouTube is a content distributor. It's only by showing it you enjoyed, watching until the end, and interacting with the content that it starts to share it more and more. It's our community, the biggest and best Formula One audience in Brazil, that's able to make a real difference. So, I'm counting on you. To make sure you don't miss out on anything we do here, we have notification channels Instagram, Telegram, and WhatsApp where you can join and start receiving an automatic message the moment I publish any content. The links are down below in the description. And last but not least, we have our social media Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and TikTok where there's content all the time. We're showing the handles here, and the link is also down below. Thanks, and a big hug.